The origin of the glyph for Gemini is said to be two vertical wooden bars crossed with two more, depicting the twin gods worshipped by the Spartans and carried by them into battle. The morphology of Gemini can also be seen in the Roman numeral 2, and here in these two pillars, or Doric columns of ancient Greek architecture. It is not surprising, therefore, that Gemini rules things that twin with each other. There is always the factor of duality and the interplay of opposites, night and day, dark and light, left and right, and so on. Anything that occurs in pairs or twos comes under Gemini. Things that are halved or split into two, and yet still related to each other, like a semi-detached house, or this dual carriageway, or these twin towers. Anything with the prefix bi, bifurcation, bipolar, binary fission, binary stars. Gemini is concerned with the relating of one thing to another, whether inanimate or human. When afflicted, there is conflict and discord between the two, resulting in arguments, quarrels and disputes, like those that often occur between neighbours, or over a decision in sport, witnessed and commented on by thousands, right up to differences at national level, where there is duality of religion, politics, or race. But the disputes of Gemini only become violent when the planet Mars is present, as it was in 1642, when the English Civil War broke out, with its two armies of Roundheads and Cavaliers, parliamentarians and royalists, Cromwell and Charles I. The Parliament of today, set up by Cromwell, is dual in nature, with the facing rows of members in the House of Commons presenting the opposing sides of a debate. We have an opposition party, and always arguments across the floor at question time. England itself is ruled by Gemini, as also is its long-separated twin, the United States of America. The two may be split, but there is a distinct affinity between them, a special relationship, and in periods of crisis, this is demonstrated by their ability to work together. Conflict and argument are often followed by separations, splits, and departures, which also come under Gemini. With the 9th house in Sagittarius, the opposite or complementary sign to Gemini, things part and go a long way away. But with Gemini and the 3rd house, we think of short distances. The short journeys of the commuter, who travels to and fro to work each day, are typical of Gemini, whereas Sagittarius would rather jet across the Atlantic. Tete-a-tetes and conversations which resolve differences are also associated with Gemini, which, at its best, harmonizes and blends opposites. Dialogue, discussion, and negotiation can facilitate a compromise and sometimes even an entente between two former enemies. In esoteric astrology, Venus, the ruling planet of Gemini, teaches us that opposites are not always antagonistic. They are also complementary.
It is concluded. Good luck. Have a happy Easter. God bless all the people of Northern Ireland.
She has the ability to bring two things together and unite them in such a way that each retains its own identity. The two are distinct from each other, but they form a dynamic equilibrium, like two poles, oscillating with each other and acting as one. The rivalries of Gemini are suggested in the story of Romulus and Remus laying out Rome, with the younger Romulus triumphing. Cain and Abel, a study in malice that should have been brotherly love. Geminian opposites with a better outcome include the divine androgyny of male and female love fused, the poet and his muse, the twins Castor and Pollux in the Greek myth, Castor mortal and Pollux immortal, representing the lower and higher natures of man. The resurrection of the immortal part of some of mankind was symbolized in Egyptian mythology by the Ankh or crux ansata, similar to our modern glyph for Venus, here seen borne aloft by the winged phoenix Ba from the mummified corpse. Oscar Wilde's picture of Dorian Gray tells the story of narcissistic self-love going wrong. That which is loved as a duplicate of the personality can have the worst of discarded habits projected into it. Wilde probably drew on the fabled harpy, a ravenous creature, the personality's double, said to plunder the tables of its hapless victim, leaving behind the filth of its feathers and claws. Also under Gemini are the man and his doppelganger, the astral body of his last life, which, cut short, has survived into this one. Each of us contains his own twin, for we are bilaterally symmetrical. We can be separated into two halves, both the body and the face, the eyes and eyebrows, the ears, the cheeks and nostrils are mirror images of each other. Today, twins grace our society, emphasizing fashions and hairstyles, and often with them products and brand names. Sometimes twins are used to draw attention to various psychological factors such as heredity, similarity or dissimilarity of environment, and what we in esoteric psychology would call the third factor. These twins, age 17, fell ill at work and underwent appendectomies within 24 hours of each other, but 300 miles apart. These twins, representing Great Britain, competed in the European Gymnastic Championships. Noteworthy is their capacity to draw emotionally from each other during preparation for their events. Gemini rules twinned places like Minneapolis and St. Paul, the so-called twin cities of the USA, which have grown into each other through the years. After the Second World War, many English towns were twinned with a German counterpart, as gestures of goodwill between quarrelsome neighbours. There is a natural affinity in astrology between Venus, ruler of Gemini, and the Sun. Venus rules the hands, and the Sun rules mirrors. In the hand mirror, we behold our twin, the mirror image of ourselves. A hand mirror is a looking glass, another Venus-Sun conjunction. The ancients believed that through the looking glass we perceive the other or astral world. Two of the most famous books in the English language are Alice in Wonderland and its companion Alice Through the Looking Glass. They tell of the astral perceptions of a sensitive girl detached from her outer twin. Twins that are not identical, or even twins in the true sense, more aptly fall under Venus when it is retrograde. The split nature of Gemini is indicative of several severe psychological disorders. When Gemini is divided between two places, say between home and workplace, the mind has difficulty in detaching from either. These oscillations between two places, between two jobs, sometimes are also reflected into the identity. Living in England and wintering in Italy, for example, and thus having duality of language, even of citizenship. Twins always share their identity, even if raised apart. Their looseness of mastery over their own identity is a characteristic of Geminians, as studies of twins have shown again and again. They identify with the boss, with friends, and with parents very easily, because Gemini rules close relationships, like brothers and sisters. Gemini rules both eyes, and is associated with the faculty of sight. The eyes are very active organs, and behave in a wide variety of ways. They can glance, they can stare, they can be focused in concentration, or turned inward and upwards in meditation. They are the windows of the soul. Naturally inquisitive about everything going on around them, Gemini's eyes are in constant movement, scanning the scenarios and the events of their environment. They appreciate bright and airy conditions and rooms with large windows through which they can look out onto the world. Windows, of course, let in light as well as air, and reflect the morphology of Gemini. The state of the iris can be diagnostic for those who have the eyes to look for signs and symptoms in the pigmented muscles around the pupil. The whole science of iridiosis has been developed from the casual observation of a physician noting that when his parrot broke its leg, the injury was immediately reproduced or reflected in the iris of one of its eyes. Movement in general comes under Gemini, which rules activities like walking, jogging, running, and track sports. Tennis is a sport that is very typical of Gemini. It is played by two people, or two couples. There are two sides to the court. It involves movement of the arms, and the running is confined to short dashes to and fro. Cricket also comes under Gemini. But baseball shares its expression between Taurus for the bat and its strikes, and Gemini for its short runs. It should come as no surprise that Gemini rules the two lungs. It is, of course, an air sign. Breath, breathing, action, and athleticism all come together under Gemini. You cannot move, run, play tennis, or cricket without breathing. Respiration is the process of obtaining energy through breathing oxygen. Gemini is therefore associated with the etheric double, which accepts prana from the sun. The elements of air and fire form a complementary pair, and many a thinker and creator has been inspired whilst out taking the air. Gemini rules the upper limbs, which include the hands. Analyzing the upper limbs in terms of ray qualities, we have will and power in the upper arm, quality of movement indicating the attributes of the second ray in the forearm, and the 5 remaining rays expressed in the hands. The thumb is on the ray of active intelligence, synthesizing the movements of the 4 remaining fingers, the forefinger being on the 5th ray of analytical capacity, the middle finger on the 4th ray of art and harmony, the ring finger on the ray of devotion, and the little finger on the 7th ray of ceremonial, order, and ritual. When the forefinger adopts certain poses of authority, it comes under Aries and its ruler Mercury. Where there are hands, there is agility, and with agility there often comes tragedy through the separation and dismemberment of limbs. Recently, public attention has been directed towards the fearsome aftermath of war, landmines, and the tragic accidents of exposure to such a hazard. We're all familiar with the limbless statues of ancient Greece and Rome, the unfortunate result of time's erosions and mishaps. History tells us that the pen is mightier than the sword, and it is the hand that wields the pen. Gemini rules communication by means of the act of writing, the hand that does the writing, the actual lettering, the art of calligraphy with all its frills and twists and turns, its grotesque illuminations, patterns, scrollings, and gold leafing. Printing should also be mentioned here. The modern printing press has made the written word available to a vastly wider readership. A talent for languages comes with a sign, and many Geminis are literate in more than one language.
Not be able to vote for your own country. Prenez du papier et un stylo et tenez-vous prête à noter le numéro.
They make excellent translators and interpreters, oscillating with ease between 2 tongues. Speech and the spoken word, however, come under Taurus, which rules the mouth. But communication itself is Geminian. Communications that tend to be short in duration, for shortness in any dimension is a Gemini feature. From language comes literature, and many of our literary beacons have blazed with the brilliance of this sign. Writers such as Dante, Blaise Pascal, Thomas Hardy, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman, Arthur Conan Doyle, all were born with the sun in Gemini. Let us take Gemini around the horoscope and look at the language, writing, and literature associated with each house. In the first house, we have the national language, and especially when it is English, or the initials, which are used to abbreviate, like RSVP, or the abridged version of a long novel, like Tolstoy's War and Peace, and epics like Milton's Paradise Lost, or Dante's Divine Comedy, which tell the story of man's journey through life and death. Gemini in the second house would be anything written that is verbalized, like the writing of speeches or the writing of songs. And here we also have inscriptions on stone, on statue, and on coin. Correspondence comes under Gemini in the third house, writing a letter, and copies or duplicates, of course. This would also be the home of the short essay and the précis, typically written by the school pupil in an English language class. Gemini in the fourth house is the children's story, richly illustrated in color, the writing of recipes for a cookery book, or perhaps a manuscript of musical notation. The handwriting in this house can be an untidy scrawl and barely legible. Gemini in the fifth house suggests literature about royalty and the aristocracy, stories like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, romantic novels with their tales of courage and affairs of the heart. The writing of examinations comes under Gemini in the sixth house, as does the use of technical terminology and medicalese and any kind of scientific literature, and the two tellers of fairy tales, Hans Andersen and Grimm. Typing suggests a degree of automation, which would be Gemini in the seventh house, the use of a typewriter or word processor. Literature here would concern the law and legal matters, and especially Dickens' story Bleak House, constructed around a court case. Gemini in the eighth house would be the writing of TV and film scripts, especially murder mysteries, occult thrillers, and war films, and erotic or sexually explicit literary works. Gemini in the ninth house is where we find the foreign correspondent, where foreign languages are studied. Also found here are the travel brochures and literature, which provide us with information about faraway destinations. The professional author at his writing desk would come under Gemini in the 10th house. The sign writing on the front of a business, or the lettering that advertises a brand name product. Gemini in the 11th house is journalism, newspapers and magazines, where there is a series of publications. This placing also suggests the morphology of words that flow in a series across the page with an undulation typical of Aquarius and the 11th house. And finally, Gemini in the 12th house could be esoteric or religious writings, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden from sight for many centuries. Espionage and the spy novel also belong here, as do writings that are censored or kept secret. With Gemini governing the basic skills of writing and reading, it is easy to see why schools and education also come under this sign. Geminis never tire of learning and often become eternal students, forever studying and taking new courses. Not surprisingly, many turn their love affair with education into a vocation and find themselves in the teaching profession. Gemini rules intelligence and intelligent activity, the matters of everyday life. Even most of the small projects we become involved in, like filling out a document with Mercury, doing the shopping with Vulcan, taking the kids to school with Venus, feeding the baby with Neptune, arranging the flowers with the Sun, doing the gardening with the Moon, taking a drive with the spouse and Uranus, tending to the welfare of the house's menagerie with Mars, mending an electrical heater with Earth, mowing the lawn with Saturn, consulting the Encyclopedia Britannica with Jupiter, and grooming the dog with Pluto. With such emphasis on intelligent activity, it is not surprising that Mars in Gemini rules the IQ, or intelligence quotient. Through a series of tests, the measure of a person's mental skills and intelligence is obtained. Esoteric science maintains that there are spiritually developed children whose gifts cannot be measured with IQ tests. Super-gifted children, in the sense of having been reincarnated many times on the earth, carry symbolically the Ankh, symbol of immortality. Here, this handmade papyrus painted in Egypt shows the winged goddess Ba before an immortal one, holding the key to everlasting life in her left hand. And Venus, the astrological Ankh, rules the super-gifted. Through her special relationship with the Sun, which rules flowers, Venus is ruler of the blue flowers that appeals so much to us when we want harmony and inner rapport. The bluebells that hug the woods, and gentian, and Canterbury bells, and the delphiniums that so happily give their pollen to the bees and their tall gracefulness to our gardens. Let us look again at that grand symbol of Gemini, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York, bastions of a Geminian nation, its dual origin, the Anglo-Saxon, and its dual ray, the ray of love wisdom. But perhaps Gemini is remembered best with the trilithons of Stonehenge and the sun lighting them up.